It was just another Tuesday taping at the Ellen DeGeneres Show, but something made Ellen pause mid-sentence during her opening monologue. The music kept playing, the audience kept clapping, but Ellen's eyes had found someone in the shadows behind the cameras, someone who wasn't supposed to be part of the show, but had somehow become the most important person in the room. The Warner Brothers studio buzzed with its usual pre-show energy. Audience members filled the iconic blue and white seats, their excitement electric as they waited for Ellen to dance her way onto the stage. The lighting crew made final adjustments, casting that perfect blend of warm golden light and cool blue ambiance that had become the show's signature look. Producers whispered last-minute directions into their headsets, while camera operators positioned themselves for Ellen's entrance. But in the far corner of the studio, moving quietly between the equipment and cables, was someone most people never noticed. Maria Gonzalez, 42, had been cleaning this studio for 3 years. Every morning at 4 a.m., she arrived with her cart of supplies, her radio playing softly, and a smile that seemed to light up the empty space before anyone else arrived. Maria wasn't supposed to be there during taping. Her shift ended at 6 a.m., long before the show began. But today was different. Today, her second job at the hospital had been canceled due to staffing changes, and she needed those hours, so she'd asked her supervisor if she could stay and help with any cleaning that might be needed between segments. What Maria didn't know was that Ellen had noticed her months ago. It started on a particularly difficult Tuesday morning. Ellen had arrived early, stressed about a challenging interview, and fighting a migraine that made the studio lights feel like needles. She'd been sitting in her chair, head in her hands, when she heard something that made her look up. Humming. Someone was humming while they worked. Ellen had followed the sound and found Maria, earbuds in, dancing with her mop as she cleaned the stage. Not performing for anyone, not aware she was being watched, just finding joy in the simple act of making something beautiful clean. The grace in her movements, the genuine happiness on her face had stopped Ellen cold. From that day forward, Ellen made a point of arriving early sometimes, just to watch Maria work. The woman moved through the studio like she was choreographing a private performance. She'd dust the guest chairs with care, as if preparing them for royalty. She'd polish the coffee table where so many celebrities had shared their stories, treating it like a sacred space, and she'd always end by standing center stage, arms outstretched, spinning once in a slow circle before gathering her supplies and moving on. Ellen had learned Maria's story through casual conversations with the custodial staff. Mother of 4 children, ages 8 to 16. Worked 3 jobs to keep them in school and put food on the table. Lost her husband in a car accident 2 years ago, but somehow maintained an optimism that seemed to radiate from her very core. The custodial supervisor called her the heart of the building because she somehow made everyone's day brighter just by being present. Now, as Ellen stood on her mark waiting for her introduction music to begin, she spotted Maria in the corner. The woman was supposed to be invisible during taping, but Ellen's trained eye found her immediately. Maria was organizing cleaning supplies, but even in this mundane task, she moved with a rhythm that suggested music only she could hear. The show began as it always did. Ellen's infectious energy, her opening monologue, filled with current events and personal observations, the audience hanging on every word. But today, Ellen kept glancing toward that corner where Maria worked quietly, and each time she did, something shifted in her expression. 20 minutes into the show, during a commercial break, Ellen did something that caught her producers off guard. Instead of reviewing notes for her next segment, she walked directly to the corner where Maria was working. "Hi," Ellen said simply. Maria looked up, startled. In 3 years of working at the studio, she'd never been this close to Ellen DeGeneres, the woman she'd watched make millions of people laugh, cry, and feel less alone in the world, was standing right in front of her. treating her like she mattered. "Oh, Ms. DeGeneres, I'm so sorry," Maria said quickly, starting to gather her supplies. "I didn't mean to be in the way." "You're not in the way," Ellen said, her voice gentler than her usual television persona. "Actually, I have a question for you." Maria paused, uncertain. "Do you dance?" Ellen asked. The question hung in the air between them. Around them, the studio bustled with activity as crew members prepared for the next segment. But in this small corner, time seemed suspended. What do you mean?" Maria asked. "I've seen you," Ellen said, with a small smile. "Early in the mornings, when you think no one's watching, you dance while you clean. It's beautiful." Maria's cheeks flushed. She'd been caught in her private moments of joy, and she wasn't sure how to feel about it. "I don't mean to," she said quietly. The music helps me work, and sometimes you can't help but move to it," Ellen finished. "I get it. Music does that to people. But Maria, your dancing, it's not just movement, it's joy. Pure, honest joy. And I think my audience needs to see that." Before Maria could protest, Ellen was walking back toward the stage, gesturing for her to follow. "Miss DeGeneres, I can't," Maria called after her. "I'm working. I'm not dressed for television." Ellen turned back with that smile that had made her famous, but there was something deeper in her eyes now, something that transcended entertainment. "Maria," she said, "trust me." The commercial break was ending. Ellen's producers were frantically trying to understand what was happening. In 20 years of television, Ellen had never gone off script like this. But something in her expression told them to let it play out. Ellen walked back onto the stage as the cameras started rolling again, but instead of returning to her usual spot, she remained standing near the guest area. "You know," she began, her voice carrying a different energy than before, "we talk a lot on this show about heroes. We have celebrities come on and tell amazing stories about courage and overcoming obstacles. But sometimes, the real heroes are the people we never see, the people who make everything else possible." The audience was attentive, sensing something special was happening. "For 3 years," Ellen continued, "someone has been making this studio beautiful for all of us. Someone who arrives at 4 a.m. every morning, who works 3 jobs to support her 4 children, and who somehow manages to find joy in everything she does. And I think it's time you met her." Ellen gestured toward the corner where Maria stood frozen, clearly overwhelmed by the sudden attention. "Maria Gonzalez, would you come out here, please?" The audience began to applaud, though they weren't sure why yet. All they knew was that Ellen had found someone special, and that was enough. Maria shook her head, pointing to her work uniform, her lack of makeup, her complete unpreparedness for being on television. But Ellen walked over to her, took her hand gently, and led her toward center stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ellen said as they walked, "this is Maria. She's the reason this place feels like home to all of us who work here. She doesn't just clean this studio, she fills it with joy." They reached center stage, and Maria stood there, looking overwhelmed but dignified. The studio lights that had once seemed harsh now seemed to embrace her, highlighting the kindness in her eyes and the strength in her posture. "Maria," Ellen said, turning to face her directly, "tell everyone what you do here." "I clean," Maria said simply, her voice barely audible. "You do so much more than that," Ellen said. "You know how I know? Because I've watched you. Every morning, you don't just clean this place. You care for it. You treat every surface like it matters, every corner like it deserves attention. And when you think no one is watching, you dance." The audience was completely silent now, drawn into this unexpected moment of authenticity. "The thing is," Ellen continued, "I don't think you realize what your joy does for other people. Every morning, when I'm stressed about interviews or worried about making people laugh, I see you dancing with your mop, And it reminds me why I'm here. It reminds me that joy isn't something you have to earn or achieve. It's something you choose, even when life is hard. Maria's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. So I have a question for you, Ellen said. Would you dance with me? Right here, right now, in front of all these people? For a moment, Maria hesitated. This wasn't her world. She was a cleaning lady from East La who worked 3 jobs and barely had time to sleep, let alone appear on national television. But something in Ellen's eyes, something genuine and warm and completely present, made her nod. The music started. Not the high-energy dance music that usually accompanied Ellen's segments, but something softer, more soulful. Ellen began to move, and after a moment's hesitation, so did Maria. What happened next was magic. Maria moved with the same grace Ellen had observed during those early morning sessions, but now it was amplified by the studio lights and the presence of an audience. She wasn't performing, she was simply being herself, finding rhythm in the moment, expressing joy through movement. Ellen watched her for a moment, then began to match her movements, not leading, not trying to change what Maria was doing, just joining her in this celebration of pure, uncomplicated happiness. The audience rose to their feet, not because they were prompted to, not because of any cue from producers, but because they were witnessing something rare and beautiful. A moment when the artificial boundaries between performer and audience, between celebrity and regular person, completely dissolved. As the music played, Ellen began to speak over it, her voice carrying throughout the studio. "You know what I love about Maria," she said, still dancing. "She doesn't need a reason to find joy. She doesn't need perfect circumstances or guaranteed outcomes. She just chooses happiness every single day, even when it's hard." Maria spun, her work uniform flowing around her, and for that moment she looked like the star she'd always been, just waiting for someone to turn on the lights. "That's not just dancing," Ellen continued. "That's a masterclass in how to live." The song ended, and Ellen pulled Maria into a hug. The applause was thunderous, but more than that, it was genuine. The audience understood they'd witnessed something special. But Ellen wasn't finished. "Maria," she said, stepping back, but keeping her hands on Maria's shoulders, "I need you to know something. You've been giving this place joy for 3 years. You've been giving all of us a gift we didn't even know we needed. And now, it's time for us to give something back." Ellen gestured to her producers off stage, and suddenly, the large screen behind them lit up. "Maria, I know you work 3 jobs. I know you support 4 children on your own. I know you lost your husband 2 years ago, and you've been carrying everything by yourself." On the screen, photos appeared. Maria with her children, smiling despite the obvious struggles. Maria at her various jobs, always working, always moving, always caring for others. "So here's what we're going to do," Ellen said. "First, Shutterfly wants to set up college funds for all 4 of your children, full scholarships, books, everything they need." Maria gasped, bringing her hands to her mouth. "Second," Ellen continued, "my friends at Habitat for Humanity have been working on something special. Maria, you and your children are getting a new home. Not rented, not borrowed, yours." The audience erupted, but Maria was beyond words now, tears streaming down her face. "And third," Ellen said, her own voice thick with emotion, "I want to offer you a job here at the show. Not cleaning, though there's nothing wrong with cleaning. I want you to be our director of joy. I want you to keep doing what you've been doing, making this place feel like home, reminding all of us what happiness looks like." Ellen removed her blazer, the same light blue blazer she wore for every taping, and draped it around Maria's shoulders. "This has been with me for every show, every interview, every moment of joy we've shared with our audience," Ellen said. "And now I want you to have it, because you've taught me something I forgot. Joy isn't something you achieve. It's something you choose, and then you share it with everyone around you. Maria, overwhelmed, buried her face in Ellen's shoulder. Around them, the studio had transformed from a television set into something sacred, a place where recognition and gratitude and human connection had taken center stage. When Maria finally composed herself enough to speak, her words were simple but profound. I just wanted to make things beautiful, she said. You did, Ellen replied. You made everything beautiful. The show ended differently that day. Instead of Ellen's usual closing remarks, the cameras followed Maria as she walked through the studio, no longer invisible, no longer overlooked. Audience members reached out to shake her hand, to thank her, to acknowledge her presence. In the weeks that followed, the episode became one of the most watched in the show's history. Not because of celebrity drama or viral moments, but because people recognized something real in Maria's story. Her quiet dignity, her unshakable joy, her proof that happiness is a choice you make every day, regardless of circumstances. The response was overwhelming. Letters poured in from viewers sharing their own stories of invisible heroes, the bus drivers who greeted children with smiles, the hospital janitors who hummed while they worked, the grocery store clerks who remembered everyone's names. Maria had unknowingly started a movement of recognition for those who make the world brighter simply by being in it. 3 months later, during Maria's first official day as director of Joy, Ellen watched her prepare the studio for taping with the same care she'd always shown, but now with purpose and recognition. Maria had created a small ritual. Every morning, she would stand center stage, close her eyes for a moment, and whisper a quiet thank you to the space that had given her so much. Maria did accept Ellen's job offer, though she insisted on keeping some of her cleaning duties. Someone has to make sure this place stays beautiful, she said. Her children, now thriving in their new home and looking forward to college, often visited the studio after school. Ellen would watch them do homework in the green room, while Maria worked, 3 generations of strength and hope, filling the space with even more warmth. Ellen's blazer, now framed in Maria's new home office, serves as a daily reminder that being seen, truly seen, can change, and every morning, when Ellen arrives at the studio, she finds Maria there, still dancing as she works, still choosing joy, still making everything around her a little more beautiful than it was before. The invisible hero was invisible no more, but her power had never been in being seen. It had always been in seeing the beauty in every moment and helping others see it too.